How are you doing? Welcome to this week's Rugby League Coach analysis video. All the analysis videos on YouTube are in their own playlist now. You'll see I've been doing these for a few years, but not as regularly as I do now. So my aim is to do one every week for you for as long as I can until I drop. So please enjoy the playlist, enjoy the free content. As promised last week, I did London Broncos last week to have a rest from looking at Hull KR and looking at different players and things with Hull KR. Funnily enough, having watched the London Broncos and studied them last week, I've seen some of the same patterns this week when they played Oldham. I'm going to look at London again in a few weeks. They've got a big game against Super League's Bradford Bulls in a week's time, so I'd love to take that in before I go back to the London Broncos. But it's Hull KR this week because we're only, as we sit here now, or as I sit here now recording and talking to you, I'm recording this on the 2nd of February 2026. We're only a couple of weeks away from the World Club Challenge, Hull Kingston Rovers versus Brisbane Broncos. Now, today, I'm going to study their defence, Hull KR's. Okay, so it's a really stingy defence that throughout the regular rounds of the competition, the 27 regular rounds that is, they averaged 11 points a game. In the finals, they averaged 9. They're very stingy defensively. One of the keys to that is they try and strangle their opposition with patience and good field position, good kicking, good chase, and all the things associated with that. So Brisbane Broncos are going to have to break that up somewhat. But today I'm looking specifically at the defence of Hull Kingston Rovers. In terms of the World Club Challenge, and particularly for Australian fans who are watching this, even though Australia have dominated this competition in the last decade or so of the last 11 matches, NRL clubs have won 7. Of the last 15, NRL clubs have won 10. Even though the history leans towards the Australian clubs, on the last two occasions, English teams have won it. Okay, St Helens won it in Penrith, and also Wigan beat Penrith too the last time this was played. And the British have a very unique take on the World Club Challenge. It means an awful lot to them. It's been played mostly in England. It was a competition that was started in the 70s, I believe, but the most high-profile start was in 1987 when Manly travelled to Wigan. You may, if you're Australian or from the Southern Hemisphere, you may be thinking, well, England got beat in the Ashes. The difference with Super League is, for many years, there's been a number of overseas players in their team. Okay, so Hull Kingston Rovers last year had Jared Weir-Hargreaves in their front row. And this year, Super League clubs are allowed 10 overseas players. So it's not necessarily a reflection of the English talent in the competition. It is a reflection of the standard of the competition, though, at the top. So Brisbane have got it all to do because they haven't got a warm-up game. Hull Kingston Rovers will have played 2 competition games. They'll have played a Challenge Cup tie, albeit against lower opposition, but perfect preparation, if you ask me. And then they play York Knights in round 1 of Super League, who they requested, and York Knights have just been promoted up to the Super League and are expected by many to struggle. Brisbane, on the other hand, won't have had any match practice. They've had a tough camp in the heat of Toowoomba in the last few weeks. And I very much think Madge Maguire will be taking this seriously. I don't doubt that for 1 second. I think he's already been in the press saying that this is a bigger game than the grand final, which, however, they'll be going to Hull. Now, the game is played at Hull FC's ground, not at Hull KR's ground. But that means there'll be a lot of Hull fans there. The game sold out in no time. The atmosphere will be hostile. I had some people say on socials that the atmosphere at Suncorp is better than anywhere. No, I'm sorry. These Hull fans will make a serious amount of noise. And everybody in England is going to be behind them. And it's February, so it will be freezing. So, with all that in mind, let's have a look how we can maybe break this Hull KR defence down. In both Hull KR's big games, the finals at least, they started each game poorly. So the first defensive clip we're looking at is Hull FC having coughed up the ball. Now, can you see how many players went into that tackle? So whenever a team puts bodies into the tackle, it means there's players missing in the defensive line. Yes, it's early in the game, but one thing that Brisbane will look at, after looking at Hull KR in the big games last year, is starting really, really fast. The ball has just been played. Look how many Hull Kingston Rovers players aren't in a defensive position. And what really baffles me is the players that are in a second line behind the defensive line. So one of them might be the fullback, but there's another player there too. So this aggressive nature of Hull Kingston Rovers, it can also have a side effect, and that can be weakness in the defensive line. So that's something that Brisbane might focus on straight away. Now, again, look at this line speed from Hull Kingston Rovers. Brilliant. Now, some of their players' tackle techniques are a little bit questionable at times. I've done videos already on Mikey Lewis and Jez Litton, the 6 and the 9 respectively. And some of these tackle techniques, very chesty, all designed to control. Didn't really drive Wigan back or anything like that, and the rules around the ruck were a lot more lenient in Super League last year. They're going to be looking at faster rucks this year, which will benefit Brisbane, no doubt, because they'll be used to them. Again, look at the line speed. Look at the line speed. So obviously Hull Kingston Rovers put a massive emphasis on a real fast start in defence, and if Brisbane are calm and composed in their attack and look up and try and exploit some gaps in the defensive line, there's going to be opportunities for them. I spoke in the preamble how Hull KR suffocate sides. Nice deep kick, and then look at this kick chase. That is a brilliant kick chase, albeit in the first 5 minutes of the game. Once again, men in the tackle. I'm going to have a look at the tackle techniques and the shape of the defence now. Okay, so this is an area of the field where I would expect most teams to be quite compressed, except Hull Kingston Rovers' bodies are clearly tighter than they were further back down the field. However, they're still moving up and in, which means they're moving towards the ball as opposed to them being so compressed that they move straight. So again, something that impacts tackle techniques, because number 8 there, he came from the right, number 12 chased from marker, and have a look at number 12 there. I use numbers to make it easier for the viewer. He's starting to lose his feet in the tackle, and he has lost his feet in the tackle. If you bear in mind a lot of the power comes from the legs, it's not a great thing that you lose your feet in the tackle. Now, don't get me wrong, Hull Kingston Rovers have controlled these rucks, but these are Super League rucks. They're not NRL rucks, and they're not NRL attacks, because Brisbane Broncos had one of the best attacks in the NRL competition in 2025. As you can see, some momentum can be gained because of the chesty tackle techniques. That was Mikey Lewis in that tackle. Again, Hull Kingston Rovers have coughed up possession, and Wigan have got some good field position. Again, you probably saw the up and in movement from the right edge there. Let me show you that again. So the defenders above the scrum, the 3 defenders, are quite spread out. The first 2, their spacings are relatively short compared to the last 2, the wing to the centre. And the right centre does excellently, spins, turns, readjusts himself there, number 3, and makes a great tackle. That said, who was running at him? If that was Reece Walsh, would that happen? Now, we have a play the ball within the first scrum line, so basically 8 metres, 7 metres from the touch line. Hull Kingston Rovers have 2 markers and they have 1 defender on the short side, and they are clearly going to rush up on the open side, and it's all about speed and coming out. Now look how far back Wigan have caught the ball there and how much they've not made in terms of metres. Now, on the face of it, this looks like a win for Hull KR, doesn't it? However, if there's a quick play the ball, those Hull Kingston Rovers defenders have got to go back very quickly. There wasn't a good play the ball, particularly from Wigan, and Hull Kingston Rovers were able to generate line speed again. I mean, one of my biggest requests at Rugby League coach is from coaches who want to improve line speed, and the way to improve line speed is the collision and ruck control to give your defence time to come back. That's what happens when you defend at pace, at speed, and you defend maybe a little bit too much attacking. I'm an advocate of attacking defence, but you've also got to have some composure in the right areas of the field. Let's have a look at the Hull Kingston Rovers defensive line here again. Again, the spacings are somewhat inconsistent. They're a bit tighter around the ball, but as we go further out, some players have got hips square, others are starting to turn in a direction. Shakira always said the hips don't lie. Again, the right centre and the right wing came up to kill, and now they're backtracking and readjusting. And again, the tackle was made. Will this happen to somebody like Tony Staggs? This is my worry for Hull Kingston Rovers if Brisbane get into some kind of groove with their Brisbane Broncos get into some kind of groove with their attack, because quite frankly, Brisbane Broncos are a better attacking side than Wigan. As you'll note here, Hull Kingston Rovers failed to deal with a high kick, and the right centre for Wigan does a good job of getting to it first, but Wigan blow the chance to score, so things could be different. And again, this is another message to Brisbane to start the game strong. Hull Kingston Rovers have given a piggybacking penalty, and now they are defending, or will be defending soon, in their own half. Again, the defenders are coming up and in, so what that means is a little bit spread, and they are coming in towards the ball. Up and out tends to be more compressed, and you allow the opposition to pass around you, and then you slide with the ball. Again, some tackle techniques. I've paused it here because the player that's coming in to tackle number 16 from Wigan, he's diving in really. So these things don't get exposed all the time in Super League. They could well get exposed by an NRL side though, and as you see, that person who went in for the tackle, like Superman, his feet weren't in the right place, he fell off the tackle. So these are going to be things that Michael Maguire will really be studying, and don't forget players like Payne Haas, Reece Walsh and the like are going to be running at this defence. There's another issue here I want to bring to your attention. So Hull Kingston Rovers have a defensive line. There's no problem right now. It's not completely flat, but they rarely are at times when you go in aggressively. But somebody's shooting out the line here, and they possibly don't need to. It rushed an attacker into making a decision, and it's worked out okay. But if we've got Brisbane Broncos attacking this, they're not going to react as much to that kind of thing. And did you see the footwork there, beating the defender? Wigan starting to get some go forward now. Now, this is where Hull Kingston Rovers have to be careful, because by moving the ball somewhat laterally, Wigan have made Hull Kingston Rovers put an extra defender above the sign where it says Betfred there. So there's actually 4 defenders, where you possibly could you could probably have 3, and a marker that reacts to the short side goes towards the short side. So they're knocking Hull Kingston Rovers out of their shape a little bit. And again, comparing the attacks, Brisbane Broncos are going to be so much better at this. We can get back some possession from an error from the kick return, and the winner can now have a look at Hull KR's goal line defence again. Very willing, very energetic, but they've got to be smarter if they're going to beat Brisbane Broncos. Very good in terms of energy, very good in terms of bodies in the tackle. Again, though, when you put 3 in, did you notice number 13 got off quickly then? If you don't get off quickly, it can leave you short in the defensive line. Now, the spacings there for Hull Kingston Rovers were all over the show. Some players had committed to the tackle, others held back. A smarter attacking team would have attacked the next space rather than the one that Wigan tried to go to there. Wigan are a bit structured at times and probably don't play as much eyes-up football as they should. Also, because of their energetic slide, Hull Kingston Rovers got stepped back on the inside. They didn't stay on the inside shoulder then. I'll show you that clip again. So Wigan are moving the ball laterally. Hull Kingston Rovers do not have a straight defensive line. It's actually, some players are up, some players are back, some players are further up as we look across the line. And they've done an umbrella. So they're trying to pressure the outside attackers. And when they've slid, because of the nature of their defence, because it's up and in as opposed to up and out primarily, or certainly comes across that way anyway, when they've slid, they've actually slid past the ball, so they're getting attacked on the inside shoulder. This is Bevan French, somebody who didn't have a great NRL career, but who's a very, very, very exciting player in England. For Bevan French, see Reece Walsh and some of the other great attackers in the Brisbane Broncos side. Another try blown by Wigan. I want to take you to the second half now, and soon Hull Kingston Rovers are going to concede a try. We're going to go score their only try of the grand final. And I'm a huge fan of not taking a defensive set in isolation when it comes to conceding a try. I like to see if there's any clues in what happens earlier. Hull Kingston Rovers shifting the football. We will look at their attack next week. Not having much joy in terms of finding space or getting goal forward, but a lot of kick pressure there from the marker, and Wigan take the ball, attacking it, and get their set off to a really good start. Again, Hull KR are attacking in their defence. Sometimes you just have to make tackles rather than fly in. We've seen how one defender earlier really tried to put the big hit on and missed. They're still very aggressive, Hull Kingston Rovers, and I'm not having a go at this at all, but I don't know if there's enough composure in that defence. For Brisbane Broncos, again, we've just had a defender drop off, and there's numbers committed in the tackle. Don't forget, this led to a try. Wigan have just done a shift. They probably weren't expected to. They've attacked space. They've supported the man with the football, and look what's happened. I'm going to go through that line shot again. As you can see where I've paused the tape, there's one defender still coming back from the collision, and Wigan are about to play the ball. And this is why this is important. Look how many Hull Kingston Rovers are above the referee, and that is a slight problem with a defensive split. They look a little bit short on the right side of defence to Hull KR at the bottom of the screen. The wing might have dropped somewhat for the kick. Wigan just decide to do a shift. This should not be a problem for any quality defensive side, but they'd lost concentration here because they're up and in. 3 men went to the ball when really it should have been a bit more composed. And Wigan are on the outside. Defenders have already been engaged, and that was meat and drink. Wigan needed to do more of this. Brisbane Broncos, Reece Walsh, etc. will do plenty. So I think you'll agree with me, a little bit for Brisbane to go out there, and next week we'll have a look at Hull KR's attack. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please, if you haven't, subscribe, because a lot of people who watch forget to subscribe. My name's Lee Addison. I'm from Rugby League Coach. I love your work, whatever you do in the game. Take care.